Why is a flat tax rate unfair for poor people? If you only think of it in terms of taxes, a flat tax seems fair. If you think about it in terms of cost of existing with an unobjectionable standard of living, a flat tax disproportionately affects people with lower incomes. In essence, the idea of a progressive income tax is to tax income that is more disposable at a higher rate than income that is necessary. Let's illustrate the point comparing people making $20K, $100K, and $1 million with a 10% flat tax. First, estimate the cost of basic necessities. Monthly. Rent $800, food $200, transportation $100, health insurance $300, utilities $100, phone, internet $100. I'm sure I'm leaving stuff out and these estimations are probably bad, but they illustrate the point. Add all this up, you get yearly expenses of $19.2K. This leaves disposable incomes of $800, $80,800, and $980,800 before tax. Now apply a 10% flat tax. Taxes are $2K, $10K, and $100K. For the $20K income, not only have you taken 100% of their disposable income, you also take $1,200, 6%, from their income that pays for basic necessities. In comparison, the 100K income loses 12.3% of their disposable income, and the 1 million income loses 10.2% of their disposable income. So even though the higher incomes pay higher absolute taxes, the tax is far more burdensome on the lower income. If I make $30,000 a year and somebody sucked $6,000 from my bank account, it would mean the difference between making rent and being out on the street. If I made $3 million a year and you sucked $600,000 out of my account, I'm still a millionaire. Maybe I can't build a second solid gold pool or purchase a new Lamborghini, but I can still survive and live at the height of luxury. Because $100 for a poor person is the difference between eating and not eating, but totally irrelevant to a rich person. A poor person has to use all their money to survive. Food, rent, etc. If you take away money from that poor person, that is money they need for basic human needs. A rich person only needs a really small amount of money for surviving, and most of the money is used for luxury or not used at all. Big cars, pools, etc. If you take away more money from them, they will still have their basic needs fully met. They just have to cut back on the fun expenses. It's amazing how many people have no idea how tax works. The poorer feel the taxable percent more than the rich. Tax the rich more, the government gets more money. The poor are taxed a lower proportion and have more money available to them directly. 10% to a person who makes $500K is not a super amount. A person living off $20K would definitely feel it. Okay, here goes. Before I start though, I would like to clear up some basics. The tax system that we have today in the US is progressive. Progressive taxation isn't called progressive because it came from the progressive movement. The term progressive refers to the way the tax rate progresses from low to high, with the result that the average tax rate is less than the highest marginal tax rate. In a progressive tax, taxpayers are partitioned into income brackets. If you have taken college math, this would be like an increasing step function with a minimum of 0 and a maximum of C. i.e., the poorest bracket would have a tax rate of 0 and the richest bracket would have a tax rate of C. There are 5 major reasons why a progressive tax is preferable to a flat tax: diminishing utility, ability to pay, social mobility, velocity of money, and use of the commons. I'll go through and try to describe why these are better in a progressive system. Diminishing utility. Imagine for a moment that wealth was measured in fast food. If you only received one hamburger a day, it would be extremely valuable to you. If you lost it, your heart would be broken and you would need to beg for more. If you received 3 hamburgers and large drink every day, all your hunger needs would be met. If you lost one, you would be pissed but you wouldn't worry too much about it. If you received 5 hamburgers, 2 large pizzas, 5 large drinks, and a cheesecake every day, you probably couldn't eat it all. You would save most of it and probably want to find a different way to use it other than eating. If you dropped a burger on the floor, you would throw it away. Basically, the utility of food is decreasing as you receive more and more of it. Dollars are the same way. Once a person's needs are met, the value of a dollar decreases to the point where receiving another has no utility. This is part of the justification for higher tax rates for higher income brackets and lower rates for lower brackets. Ability to pay. Going back to the burger example, imagine we decided to collect a flat 33% burger tax. Who would this affect the most? The people with only one burger to eat every day. To them, every single bite is valuable. They can't afford to pay the tax at all. And that's before we even start talking about sales taxes. People who got 3 would probably be okay, but they would be put in a really tight spot if they had kids to feed. If you were in the top bracket, you would probably have no problem at all. It would be an inconvenience at most. In a progressive system, we can take the pressure off the lower classes by giving them a lower tax rate. The moral principle here is that the taxes shouldn't be more than people are able to pay. It's immoral to levy a tax that hurts the poor or moves people into poverty. Social mobility. Moving out of poverty is extremely difficult. It requires superhuman levels of self-control, a way to start saving money, a great support system, and a good amount of luck. As I mentioned earlier, a flat tax hits the poor and lower middle classes the hardest. A flat tax would be a barrier to entry into the middle class because it decreases their ability to save money. Velocity of money. An economy is not like a household. In an economy, your spending is my income and my spending is your income. We call the rate at which people spend their money the velocity of money. An economy only functions well when the velocity of money is high and stable. A depression occurs when the velocity of money becomes unstable and drops. We see this in the Great Depression when bank runs caused the velocity to spike, and the banks and credit went under. Without banks or credit, the velocity dropped to 0 and the economy collapsed. There are a few things that cause the velocity to dip, but one of the big ones is hoarding. If a huge sum of money sits in a bank gathering dust, it destabilizes the velocity of money. The less money there is in the market, the more likely the market will crash. This is one of the reasons central banks have a targeted inflation rate. It discourages large sums of money from going stale. A high tax rate on the top incomes takes money that would normally go stale in a bank and invests it back into the economy, therefore increasing the velocity and benefiting everybody. Use of the commons. The commons is a general concept for the infrastructure and legal systems that make an economy possible. The commons are things like roads, firefighters, military, communication, and a currency. Every taxpayer pays to use the commons, and it's 100% worth it. Some taxpayers utilize the commons more than others. For example, subsistence farmers and mountain hermits utilize the commons the least. Investment bankers and large manufacturers utilize the commons the most. It is only fair to tax people based on how much they utilize the commons. It's like this. If me and my 3 roommates share a car, and I use it 70% of the time, should we all pay an equal share of the gas? Of course not. The only effective way to levy taxes proportional to use of commons is with a progressive tax. Because the rich can more afford losing a greater proportion of their income. The government needs to take a certain amount of money to function. If this is taken as an even percent across all people, it ends up being uncomfortably high for poor people. Whereas the rich do absolutely fine. An unevenly distributed tax, where the rich pay an even greater share of their income, allows the government to take the money it needs whilst still keeping taxes low for the poor. And the rich still do fine paying so much. Because 101,520% of a $40,000 salary hits a lot harder than 101,520% of a $1 million salary when cost of living is taken into account. People who usually talk about flat tax ignore real income. It all sounds nice what flat tax brings, but it's not the same 10% of my $1,000 and 10% of your $1 million purely. For example, I have $900 left, and what can I do with it? And you have $900,000 left. People are missing the real difference. At $30K a year, you spend almost everything on necessities. Someone making $300K a year doesn't. Someone making $3 million a year absolutely doesn't. If someone making $30K a year was able to keep more money, they would purchase more goods, maybe a new appliance, and put that money back into the economy. Someone making 100 times that, $3 million, isn't purchasing 300 times as many things. Cars, appliances, food. So not only does a flat tax hurt the poorer population by affecting whether or not they can survive, it also doesn't help the economy. Honestly, people making less than like $35,000 a year shouldn't be taxed at all. Here's a good graphic. https www.statista.com/statistics/247420/percentage of annual consumer spending by income quintiles/. We can assume that the huge difference in insurance and pensions is things like life insurance and 401k contributions, making it somewhat discretionary, or at least not essential to immediate survival. We could also call entertainment, apparel, and cash contributions, probably stuff like donating to charity or tithing to church, discretionary. But housing, food, and transportation are necessary to survival and/or to holding down a job. The lowest 20% of income earners in the U.S. spend 71.8% of their total yearly income on those three categories. Literally just to survive. They're spending about 72% of their income. The highest 20% spends just 45.9%. In that extra category, that's where life happens. That's where you save for retirement or to send your kids, or you, to college. Where you pay to bury your mother. Where you replace the water heater in your house or buy your kid their first bicycle. That extra section is for vacations and birthday presents and emergencies and, yes, healthcare. So let's say that we instituted a flat tax of 10% across the board. You've just cut that life fund on the poorest 20% by a third. But it's only cutting the life fund on the wealthiest by less than a fifth. You see, it may be 10% of total income, but simple survival costs more for the poor. If you exclude the cost of survival expenses, it's actually a tax of 35.5% on the poorest and only 18.5% on the richest. Essentially, you're taking twice as much of that life fund from the poorest as you are from the richest. If I make barely enough to eat and pay rent, and now you want to take a percentage of that from me, you are hurting me. If someone else makes enough to own 2 homes, 2 cars, eat out 4 times a week, save for retirement, save for vacation, and you ask them for the same percentage in tax, You aren't hurting them. Why do you want to hurt poor people? Like many things, it depends on the details. For example, a straight flat tax of 15% is very different from a flat tax of 15% with a tax allowance of say 25K. Anything under is not taxed, and all income treated the same. Dividends, capital gains, salary, no tax hiding. Personally, I favor that system. Flat tax with tax allowance and make the tax system so simple there are no loopholes or different kinds of income. Taxes pay for civilization and the benefits it brings. These include rule of law and protection of property rights, which benefit rich people more. Therefore, rich people should pay more tax because they receive greater benefit. Someone who say makes 20K a year would have to pay 2K in taxes. If you're only making 20K a year, that's going to affect you a lot. You rely on that money. In economics, it's called the decreasing utility of wealth. Every dollar you receive in income provides slightly less utility than the last. Those pushing the concept of a flat tax are intentionally taking advantage of the fact that most people don't understand how tax brackets work.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Aircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.